Hey everybody, my name is Paul Esden Jr., aka Boy Green. Welcome to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/BoyGreen25. I am the New York Jets digital reporter for Heavy.com. Make sure you hit subscribe on the YouTube channel and give a big thumbs up. We'd appreciate that. Every Monday here on the show, we take an inside look. We go behind enemy lines on who the New York Jets are playing next. And next up on the docket is the Denver Broncos. And to get a better scope of who the heck this team is, we're speaking with a fantastic guest. Phil Milani is the multimedia sports journalist for the Broncos. Phil, how are you?
Hey, thanks for having me on here, Paul. I'm in enemy territory for you guys.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm going to be honest, it makes me incredibly uncomfortable. We'll get into that in just a little bit. But first off, let's start off back in the offseason. There's a heated quarterback battle there with the Broncos, whether they wanted to go with Teddy Bridgewater or whether they wanted to go with Drew Lock. First off, how tight of a race was that this offseason?
I really think it came right down to the wire. I mean, in the first preseason game, the Broncos were playing Minnesota. Drew Lock went out there and dominated it. He had 2 touchdowns. Everybody thought maybe it was his job, but then Teddy, he's been that steady kind of guy. And over time, he's just showing what he's capable of, never gets too rattled. It didn't bother him that Drew played well to start that game. He came in and did what he had to do. And I really think he won that job versus Drew losing it.
And what went into that decision? Because obviously there's a lot of different characteristics that both, that Drew Lock had in his arsenal that perhaps Teddy Bridgewater didn't, and vice versa. So what stood out for Teddy to win that job?
Well, I think if you look at the Broncos as a whole, like, this defense is one of the best in the NFL. And I think that decision makers knew that going into the season, that, hey, the defensive side of the ball is going to be really strong. And then when you look at this Broncos offense, they have a lot of playmakers. I mean, they got a couple of good running backs. They got Cortland Sutton on the outside. Jerry Jeudy, when he's healthy, is out there. A few other good wide receivers. Got a couple of tight ends. I think they felt like if they just had a guy at quarterback who didn't turn the ball over, who just got the ball out to their playmakers and let them do their thing, then that would be the best formula for this Broncos team to win. And some people thought, okay, maybe Drew Lock had a higher upside, but through these first 2 weeks, I mean, we've really seen Teddy go out there and he's let it fly. He's taken a lot of long shots. He's not just been this check down kind of quarterback that a lot of people thought that he was going to be. I think that maybe he surprised a few people these first couple of weeks, but his most important stat is 0 turnovers through 2 weeks of football.
Speaking of Bridgewater, I got to imagine Jets Broncos, is there revenge angle here for Teddy?
He never actually played in an actual game there in New York, right?
No,
he got moved before that. So he doesn't really strike me as that kind of guy who really holds a grudge like that. You know, he comes into the building every day with a really positive attitude. He's, he makes it all about his teammates. He, like, during the whole quarterback competition, he never made it about himself. He was always talking about just trying to be the best version of himself so that this team has a chance to win. And I don't think there's any grudge there.
Again, we're speaking with Phil Milani, multimedia journalist for the Denver Broncos here on the show. And so far, so good. 2 weeks in, Denver is undefeated. And just as I think we saw the tweet earlier today, just as everyone predicted, what Raiders, Broncos, the 2 undefeated AFC teams left. Ah, yes, of course.
I had that, Paul. I don't know what you're talking about.
So tell me, what are the biggest takeaways from the first 2 weeks of the season for Denver?
Well, it really starts with Teddy. I mean, we just talked about him a bunch there, but he's really brought a confidence to this team where maybe that's been missing the last couple of years, where, if one problem happened during the game, a lot of the mindset would go negative for this team. And there would be a lot of, here we go again. Well, with Teddy in there, that's sort of gone away now. And the Broncos have found themselves trailing to start each of these first 2 games early, and it doesn't bother them. It doesn't shake them at all. There's a confidence about this team. And I think that really comes with Teddy's veteran sort of leadership and just strong presence there at quarterback. And then the other thing to me has just been how good this defense is. I mean, yesterday facing the Jags, they really made life miserable for Trevor Lawrence, through a couple of interceptions, and they only gave up 7 points. The other touchdown the Jags scored was on special teams. So really, this defense is what's winning games, and the offense is surprising some people these first couple of weeks.
Phil, I'm going to be blunt. I'm going to be honest. When I looked at this matchup a couple months ago, it made me queasy. And as we've gotten closer, that has not gone away in any such manner. And that's because of everything you've hinted at throughout this entire conversation. The Broncos defense, I see them. They scare me at every level of that defense. But let's start with the pass rushers. Von Miller, everyone knows about Von Miller. He's terrific. And then, oh yeah, some guy named Bradley Chubb returned this weekend as well. Those guys look pretty fearsome.
Yeah, I mean, Von Miller missed all of last season. There were so many question marks about how much does he have left in the tank? Is he still the old Von Miller that we all know and love? And through 2 weeks, he has 3 sacks. He's been a factor in the run game. He's really had a lot of quarterback pressures. So he seems to be the same Von that we've seen all the way back to Super Bowl 50 when he was the MVP. The other side, Bradley Chubb, definitely a question mark there. He left the game against Jacksonville early with an ankle injury. It's something that he's been fighting for the last several weeks here. He missed the Broncos opener against the Giants with this ankle issue. And I'm not sure if he's going to be ready to go this Sunday. If he can't, Malik Reed is the backup there. And I think that he's shown that he's capable of being a starter in the NFL. It helps playing on the other side with Von Miller, but he's been able to get to the quarterback a couple of times in his career. So I think they're hoping that he can pick things up, but definitely missing the number 5 overall pick from a few years ago on Bradley Chubb.
Von Miller looks like back in Super Bowl 50 shape. Excellent. Great news.
Right, mark that down.
Yeah, there you go. That sounds terrific. Let's go to the back end of the defense. We'll kind of skip a step here. The secondary looks pretty good, including their top 10 pick, Patrick Surtain, who got on the board this weekend as well. He looks pretty intimidating.
Yeah, he was starting for an injured Ronald Darby. It was his first career start, and Vic Fangio was really pleased with the way he played. He made that interception after the game. Fangio said, "There's not too many cornerbacks in the entire NFL that could make that interception." So he's been groomed ever since he was born. I mean, his dad was a Pro Bowler in the NFL, really coached him in high school in Florida. And then of course he went to Alabama, and he's been everything that the Broncos hoped that he would be. And then on the other side, they have Kyle Fuller. Kyle Fuller probably had his best season ever back in 2018 when he played for Vic Fangio in Chicago. And they're hoping that they can get that same kind of production from him this year. He gave up an early touchdown against Jacksonville, but his reputation sort of speaks for itself. They really feel like he's going to be a strong piece out there. And then at nickel, they have Bryce Callahan, who he's one of the better nickel coverage guys in the NFL. It might be like Chris Harris Jr. and then Bryce Callahan. And the Broncos, when they won the Super Bowl, they talked about that pass rush up front, and then they had the no-fly zone in the back. There's a lot of talk around here that this secondary might be just as good as the no-fly zone.
Wow, that sounds like a pretty good first world problem to have. And by the way, speaking of that concept, I have to ask you, Surtain making his first start this past weekend, is that because of that first world problem nature? They just have so many good cornerbacks that they could afford to bring him along slowly, or is there something else going on there?
No, they want him to play. They're trying to find ways to get him out on the field. Week 1, Ronald Darby, the whole secondary was healthy. He only got 16 snaps in that game, but then Darby went to IR, had a hamstring problem, and then they were like, all right, let's see what the rookie has here, move him into the starting lineup. And they've been really pleased with him. I mean, they felt like he was the safest, surest thing in the draft. And he's been living up to those expectations. Champ Bailey, the Broncos Hall of Fame corner, he spent some time around the team a little bit here and said when he sees Pat Surtain II, he sees a lot of similarities to himself. And that's high praise coming from a guy like Champ.
Yeah, no question. Champ Bailey, one of the best in the game, and finally getting some more respect as he progresses through his post-career. I do have to bring up this. I saw this morning that PFF ranked Denver as both a top 10 unit, both offensively and defensively coming off week 2. But then I like went when I was looking at it, I'm like, special teams 32nd. What the heck is going on there in the third phase of the game there, Phil?
Yeah, their special teams, they've been wanting to improve in that area pretty much all off season. They've tried to build the depth in the back end of the roster so that they'd have enough guys to play special teams. They got more athletic, but they just haven't been assignment sound. They gave up a return for a touchdown against the Jags. And, one of the unfortunate things is they had to have starting linebacker Josie Jewell play a little bit of special teams. He actually hurt himself playing special teams, hurt his pec. Not sure how severe that is, but that would be a big loss if the Broncos lose one of their big starting linebackers because he had to play special teams. And that is an area of concern for this Broncos team. And we'll have to see how they address that moving forward.
All right, let's go back to the offense because, again, it's just so gosh darn tantalizing. I got to be honest with you, Phil. You look at Noah Fant, that guy's an athletic freak. It's like the Greek gods sculpted him right from the statue there. And then the wide receivers. I know Jerry Jeudy's banged up right now, but he's terrific. You mentioned Cortland Sutton, KJ Hamler. There's just so many. I feel like Mel Kiper here going through all these names. It's overwhelming.
Yeah, they do. They have a lot of playmakers, and they sort of feel like this team is ready to burst onto the scene a little bit. These playmakers have been around here, but the Broncos haven't got that level of quarterback play needed to let them really shine. And they feel like if this unit can stay healthy and Teddy Bridgewater can keep playing at this level, then I think that they feel like this offensive side of the ball could be pretty strong here. Cortland Sutton was a Pro Bowler a couple of years ago. He had a torn ACL and last season. So there were some thoughts, okay, how good is he? Is he going to be able to go right away? And he had a career day yesterday, 9 catches. I think he had almost 160 yards receiving. Those are all career highs for him. So he put any of those doubts to rest.
And back to Bridgewater for a second, another stat I saw this morning that there is not a quarterback in the NFL so far this season that's attempted more 20-plus yard passes down the field than Teddy Bridgewater. Everyone's calling him check down Teddy and all this other stuff. Is it on Teddy that he's like, man, you know what? Screw all the things that people were saying about me. I know I could get down the field. Is it just the weapons he's tantalized with? Is it a coaching thing that they want him to attack down the field? What is it this year with that stat?
Well, I think they identified some mismatches against Jacksonville that allowed them to take those shots because he was letting it loose. I mean, he let that thing fly several times. I think he only connected on a couple of them, though, last week. But, yeah, he's been not what we thought that he was going to be. He does still have a super high completion percentage. He'll take what the defense gives him, but he's really been forcing it down the field too. And that's been a pleasant surprise. I certainly was not expecting that.
Again, we're getting a little late Dennis Green here. They aren't who we thought they were, and we're letting them off the hook. It's a little wild going on.
The reverse.
Yeah,
the reverse.
Exactly. That's right. Again, we're speaking with Phil Milani here. Just a couple more before we get you out of here. And what's happening in the backfield? It looks like, again, we keep using the term first world problem. Melvin Gordon, that guy's pretty good. They got this Javonte Williams kid who I think Michael Carter, the Jets running back, is a little familiar with as well. So a little bit of that action certainly heading into the game as well. How is this backfield split? Is it one guy or the other? Is it a 50-50 split? Give us the deets.
It's really 50-50 right now. I think Melvin Gordon, just because he's the veteran, he's the incumbent at that position, they're letting him sort of start out games. But they really like Javonte Williams. They thought he was a top back in the draft. They traded up in the second round to get him out of UNC there. And what's weird to me is when veteran head coaches or these like older head coaches like Vic Fangio, they don't really praise rookies all that often. And he's been praising Javonte Williams a lot. And so that's kind of caught my attention, just how much they love this kid, and he fights for the extra yards. He bounces off defenders. He's kind of like a bowling ball, where he's just tough to bring down. And Melvin Gordon too. I mean, this guy is a physical runner, but I mean, he bounces off guys. He busted like a 60-yard touchdown week 1 against the Giants. He's the kind of running back that later in the season, he's getting stronger while other guys are getting dinged up. If you stand next to this guy, you're like, whoa. I mean, you talk about Noah Fant being cut from marble. So is Melvin Gordon. I mean, the first time I met him, I was blown away. I was like, this guy's crazy.
It certainly seems that way. And let me ask you, brought up Vic Fangio. A couple of years ago, Sean McVay, find the next 30-year-old that's going to captivate the NFL. And I think Benjamin Albright, a good buddy of mine who's out there, obviously in Denver country, used the line, the Broncos zigged when everyone else zagged, was the way he described it when the Broncos went after Vic Fangio, who is obviously much older than any Sean McVay or anyone else for that matter. What is the identity of the football team? Is he still able to relate with the players despite the obvious age gap?
The thing that he is he's brutally honest. And I think that players appreciate that. He's not going to beat around the bush. He's going to just tell you what it is right to you. And that kind of honesty, I think that players appreciate that. At first, I think that they were trying to learn him that first year. He doesn't like music at practice, and they're like, oh, what is this guy? Like, what's he about? But I think as time has gone on, they bought into it. They appreciate him. And the thing that Vic likes to do is he's not stuck in his ways either. He'll listen to the team. This year, they moved their off day. The players' off day is now Monday. It used to be Tuesday, and that's because he listened to his team. I'm sorry, I flipped that back. Their off day is Tuesday. It was Monday. He listened to the guys, and they said, look, we really want Tuesdays off. And he gave it to them. And the other thing is he's gone for fourth down a lot more this year. So like he's adapting. He's not the kind of head coach that he's like, this is how I've always done it. This is how we're always going to do it. He's adaptive. And I think the guys have really bought into his coaching style. And, the one stat that always sticks out, we used it a bunch last week, is that when facing rookie quarterbacks, he is now 19-8 as either a head coach or a defensive coordinator. So that's going to be thrown around a lot this week.
I imagine so, which leads us to our final question here, Phil. We bring on insiders on every single week, and we ask them to pull out the crystal ball, go find it there in the office, pull it out, and tell us, what's your score prediction? How do you see this game playing out? Phil, give us your take.
Well, let me ask you something. Zach Wilson, the 4 interceptions, is that something that we're expecting here, or is that kind of just a blip on the radar for him?
That's a great question. And quite frankly, and maybe you can do this all the time when you just wave the magic wand and say, oh, this, or that. With Zach Wilson, the 4 interceptions, quite frankly, he had other things available. I just feel like it was a little bit of hero ball. Maybe that's a rookie thing. Maybe that's a young guy thing trying to prove to his team. He did it week 1 against the Carolina Panthers where he was trying to show his toughness. And when he took hits and got peeled off the ground, his teammates looked to him and went, oh, okay. I see a young buck. And then maybe the same way here where he tries to win the game. And quite frankly, to be candid, he didn't have to. The defense was playing well. The running game was moving people around. If he just took the layups, that I like to use the basketball analogy, that if he just would have taken the layups, the Jets would have been very fine. They would have been very much in that game. The Patriots scored 16 points off of those 4 turnovers. It was a 25-6 game. Everyone else can do the math and see what happens. But to me, it seems like the interceptions weren't like a Bill Belichick voodoo. It seemed like in Zach Wilson's own head, quite frankly, with the turnovers.
Got it. Okay. So taking that into account, I'll say Broncos 24, Jets 13.
Okay.
That's what I'll say. A touchdown, 2 field goals. I think that sounds about right. I'll tell you, a lot of people are excited here in Denver about the Broncos. They started 2 games on the road, so this is their home opener. No fans last year, really, so the place is going to be packed. I think that energy is going to be contagious, and I just see that being a little too much for a rookie quarterback going up against this defense. I see maybe some picks coming up here, and I'll give them 13, but I think the Broncos somehow find 24 points there.
I wouldn't be surprised by that. Again, Zach, it will be interesting from the Jets' perspective of watching this game. How does Zach Wilson respond? How does the youngster respond? He got punched in the mouth with the 4 interceptions, and obviously the week before had some struggles, but had some nice things in the second half. That was lacking in this past game. How does he respond? The Broncos' defense is very, very good, and they're going to have a lot of star power on that side of the ball. How does he respond? It will be interesting to watch. Phil, thank you so much for joining me very early in game week here. It's going to be a lot of fun leading in. Thanks, buddy.
Paul, thank you very much. Always a pleasure.